We at Goldberg Heinze are very proud of the law firms and professionals that we refer. Among them, and in a prominent place in our referrals, is Steve Migala of Lavelle Law here in Schaumburg as well as Chicago. And I've asked Steve to sit in for a moment or two and kind of discuss how things have changed. Seems like there's no shortage of new laws and regulations. I'd like you to meet Steve. I'd like you to get a flavor for his perspective. And I'll simply ask, what's new? Being more regulated? Where are your concerns, Steve? Welcome. Glad to have you with me.
Thanks for the invite, Paul. I appreciate being on your podcast or Zoom meeting, shall we say. So in terms of what I'm seeing out there, I know, for example, a lot of lenders, for example, lately, have been kind of tied up with these PPP loans. And so, they're first coming out of that PPP loan cocoon and they're starting to look at deals again. So, for a while, credit markets were kind of tight and, banks weren't putting as much attention into, looking at new loans and financing. So for the deals that I've kind of worked on, I've been seeing a lot more, seller financing, whether expressed by way of seller notes or kind of more implied with respect to like equity rollover. And so, I've been seeing some of that more seller financing in deals versus kind of straight financing where the seller, gets all cash out of the deal, for example, versus cash in a combination of seller notes or something. So that's definitely been a trend. Hopefully that will reverse course now that, the lenders are, paying more attention, I think, and not so distracted by the PPP loans. We've also seen an uptick with respect to estate planning. Especially at the end of last year, everybody thought with Biden, being sworn in, the tax code was going to change right away with respect to capital gains rates and the estate tax exemption amounts decreasing, and I think all that will come to pass. But I think certainly wasn't going to happen at the beginning of this year. So I think most commentators that I've read kind of projecting that's going to happen, maybe beginning of next year. So we're seeing a lot more of an uptick with respect to people who are taking a look at their estate plans and succession plans for their business as well.
Rewind for a moment, Steve, if you will, and before we get into succession planning, in your view, how should a business owner work with his or her attorney? What is the normal interaction in preparation for the time that they're going to be preparing to possibly sell or merge their business?
Yeah, and people like you, Paul, you want to get in there right away too, right? As soon as people have an idea that maybe they want to sell, like you want to get in there maybe a couple years before they actually pull the trigger, and just help them get their ducks in order, right? Get their house kind of cleaned up with respect to their books, right, and financials, making sure that the income and expenses are properly accounted for. That's something the accountants do. For me in particular, I would help with their contracts, make sure that their contracts are all appropriately documented and those relationships are documented, and for their corporate minute book as well. So we make sure all the meetings have been conducted and have been properly documented. The share ledger is up to date. Stock certificates are all there. All the related assignments. So along with the accountants and people like you, Paul, we want to get in there maybe a couple of years before the actual sale, and just to get things cleaned up and really kind of get that business ready and poised for a sale.
How many, by percentage, generally speaking, of business owners, not necessarily your clients, how many business owners pay attention to even the beginning portions of succession planning as opposed to reactive management where they're putting out fires or reacting to clients? It
Yeah,
doesn't.
they are so focused on day-to-day management and just putting out fires, and oftentimes you do need to kind of get them to focus on these kind of larger planning projects, and maybe that happens by way of a death or divorce with respect to a family member or another partner. When we kind of talk about buy sell provisions in shareholder agreements and operating agreements, for example, we call it planning for the 3Ds: death, disability, and divorce. And we really need a plan for each of these events. If something like that happens to you or your partner or a fellow shareholder.
Would you prefer that the business owner be the agent of record themselves or have you, as an attorney, be the registered agent in registering the corporation in the state of Illinois?
Sure. Yeah, we prefer that we be the registered agent for two reasons. First, we can help. We'll get notice from the Secretary of State of their annual report, the required annual report that you have to file every year with the Secretary of State. We'll get notice of that in advance, and so we can help prepare that and send that over for execution, and then we can then file it. We have a very good annual compliance program for both corporations and LLCs. For most corporations and LLCs, we offer very competitive pricing. For corporations, it's $249 a year plus filing fees, and that covers your annual report and your annual actions meetings of directors and shareholders. And then for LLCs, it's less because there's no meetings necessarily involved. It's just generally the annual report. So that's around 99 plus filing fees. So we like to do that, just get people involved. We're very systematic in that we have a big database spreadsheet that we use that we generate a lot of these reports every month for clients. And it also gives us a chance to, before we send these out, before we send these reports and minutes out, we call our clients and each year, each time, and just kind of check in with them if we haven't heard from them, and just find out have there been any significant transactions we have to document in the meeting minutes, and just get an update and just kind of do a quick legal checkup to see if there's anything that they're considering or anything that they need our legal services for. So that's a good thing. So that's really number one with respect to why you'd want us to be your registry agent. Number two, typically if an entity, LLC or corporation, gets sued, the plaintiff, their attorney, is going to sue the registered agent for that LLC or corporation. And so oftentimes then we'll accept that service process. And sometimes we can be informed of the lawsuit before the business owner will be. And so, if necessary, we can, inform them quickly and help them come up with a response, even if it's something that is, a response that's quickly required. For example, there's maybe a TRO that the plaintiff is looking for, and then we can obviously come in and address that on an emergency basis if needed. So.
Few business owners have active boards of advisors or directors. We, in our practice, suggest that the client meet with the attorney, the accountant, and the insurance agent or insurance company at least twice a year to review basically, perhaps over lunch. I'm believing that you would agree with that. Going further, is there an advantage to a more sophisticated board of advisors now, or does that entirely depend upon the size of the privately owned company?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the size and sophistication of that entity and what they're doing. Certainly if it's like a startup or something, and there aren't any significant outside investors, and maybe it's kind of a mom and pop kind of shop. Something like that maybe isn't necessarily required. It might be overkill. But there are situations where outside board, it does make a lot of sense, and certainly people like you and me can act as kind of that sounding board or a substitute, I guess, for kind of an outside director. But yeah, I mean, and like I mentioned before, it's part of our annual corporate compliance program.
Each
We
corporation, each business has an entity and identity of its own. How can our listeners get in touch with you to get better acquainted and to learn more about Lavelle Law?
Sure. So you can contact me through the main number. I'll give you that. It's 847-705-7555. Benefit of calling our main number is that you always get somebody live. And so, you won't go right to voicemail or something. And they'll be able to, our receptions will be able to help you track me down. And, you always get somebody live that way. As far as email goes, you can certainly email me. And that email is S as in Sam, M as in Mary, IGALA at lavellelaw.com. That's LAVELLELAW.com.
We're proud to refer and recommend Lavelle Law and Steve Migala in particular. We urge you to give him a call if you'd like to get better acquainted. Your business is unique, and he'll help you find, define, and solve issues pertaining to your particular business. Thank you for listening and joining us today. We'd be happy to answer questions for you as well. Get in touch with us anytime you'd like. Thanks for listening. We hope to see you again soon. Bye for now.